As we begin this first module and starting with this first lesson, some of you might start to feel your head swim just a little bit because we're going to dive right into talking about artificial intelligence. And your first full assignment, your first essay, is going to have you use some version of artificial intelligence to write the essay. And I'm going to talk about what all that means. So do not start to panic yet. Do not get out over your skis yet. We're going to walk through this. The first 2 weeks of this class, we're going to really focus on trying to wrap our heads around artificial intelligence large language models. You know them as Copilot, ChatGPT, similar kinds of programs. And then we're going to talk about how to use AI as a tool, not a crutch, and all of the details of what that means. So my first message to you is take a deep breath. We're going to take our time. Your first full essay isn't going to be due until week number 6 of this class. So you're going to have plenty of time, and you're going to submit a draft for which I'll give you some feedback. So you're going to have plenty of time between now and the time that's due to get the basics. Now you're going to have to spend the necessary time to really grasp the things we're talking about here so that you can approach this first essay appropriately. So by the end of the next 2 weeks, as we do this introductory module, you should come away with a basic understanding of what AI LLMs, artificial intelligence large language models, are. Understand something called the 70-30 principle, which I'll explain in some detail here and go into more detail later. Know how to engage productively with AI LLMs. Know how to avoid hallucinations or information that AI gives you that is just wrong or based on non-existing sources or what have you. And then you're going to be able to apply all of that learning to the process of using AI to assist you, more like a tutor, in completing your first essay. The first thing I want to say is that some of you might be uneasy about using artificial intelligence, which I completely understand. If you have objections to using AI for ethical reasons or what have you, I would be happy to have that conversation with you and share perspectives, understanding that going forward, this will be the only assignment that will require the use of AI. You can choose to use it going forward based on the guidelines I provide here. But here's the thing you need to know. You cannot function. You certainly can't take an online course without using artificial intelligence. It is now embedded in so much of what we do. And so if you wanted to avoid AI, you could live in a place like this, which looks lovely, but it would not have electricity. It wouldn't have other kinds of utilities because they all operate using some form of AI at this point. You couldn't use banks, on and on and on. You couldn't use the internet in any way, your smartphone, none of that. So understand that you are already using AI way more than you know you are, and that is only going to continue. So I appreciate those who really want to resist this process. At the same time, I'm afraid it can't be done. Where that horse has left the barn. And so what I'm attempting to do is, rather than pushing it away, talk about how to use it productively, ethically, and as a learning tool that incorporates the process of critical thinking. I am not going to spend a lot of time talking about what an AI, large language model, is, other than as I said, you've used these probably already. You've probably used ChatGPT or OpenAI or Copilot or one of these large language models. And basically, its most common purpose, its most common function is to answer basic questions, to help organize or create content. It can be useful in summarizing long documents and providing a simpler overview. And it can translate languages. Some are better at that than others. In fact, large language models, artificial intelligence, is not all created equal. Some of them are better than others. Some of them are good at one thing and not another thing. So some, for example, large language models are very good at helping you with research. Perplexity, which is not a free model, it costs $20 a month at least. Some versions cost more. Can be a good research tool and help you with that. But in general, those are the functions of AI LLMs. I am not going to attempt to explain to you precisely how AI LLMs work, partially because I don't understand it fully either. I do a lot of things using AI. I also use electricity, and I use a lot of other tools that I don't fully understand how they function. So that is not my purpose. But basically, when you're using AI, you give it some input. It then, relying on its access to neural networks, so it's connected to the World Wide Web and other types of networks, it will use that training to then respond to your prompt. And as I said, depending on what you're doing, some AI tools are better than other AI tools. But that's the basic process of how it works. Here are some basic ideas on how to use AI as a tool in a productive, ethical way. First of all, your prompts should be specific and detailed. So make sure you give AI enough information so that you can narrow down its responses. Provide context and tell it what not to do as part of your prompting. Continue to engage. Once it responds to you, you need to continue with your chat process, hone it down, get better information, continue to engage the process. Don't let that first response be the only response. You absolutely, and this is so important, you have to verify everything that you get back. I still, from time to time, see essays submitted by students that were, in my view, clearly written by artificial intelligence. And one of the dead giveaways is that on the references page, if it's an APA style, or in the works cited page, if it's MLA style, the references won't connect to anything. They've been hallucinated by AI. This still happens all too frequently. So when you are using AI to assist you, make sure it's giving you good information that you can verify, because I will be going back and verifying your references. You need to have already done that. Finally, you're the boss. Be in charge of it. And you cannot let it take you down into rabbit holes. You need to be in charge of the process. And you certainly can't say, when everything was said and done, well, I did what AI told me and it's the AI's fault. No, that's not how this works. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in other lessons, but one of the principles that we are going to be following in the use of AI for this class is the 70-30 principle, which simply means that when you submit anything that was supported by AI, at least 70% of that content, whatever it is, needs to be yours. If you can say honestly that 30% and no more was provided through the use of AI, great. That means 70% was your work. That's fine. That's using it as a tool, that's using it as a tutor, and not as a crutch to basically do your work for you. You need to be able to, if I were to sit down with you after you submit your assignment and just have a chat and ask you questions, you should be able to know exactly where you got your information, exactly the process that you followed to create the content, etc. That's the 70-30 principle, and again, I'll be talking about that more as we go through class. Using AI as a tool for this class is not only okay, but for this assignment, it's required. Using AI to cheat is easy if you want to do it. Cheating is easy. And if you are here in college to just get a piece of paper, regardless of how you get there, then you're going to cheat. Don't do it. It's not helpful to you. There's no point to it. You know when you've taken shortcuts. So, that said, here's your ethical checklist on how to use AI in this course and for this assignment as a tool and not as a crutch and not to cheat. Do you know, first of all, can you explain, if you were to sit down with me, how you went about creating the content? You should be familiar with all of the content that you created and how you got there. Can you identify areas where this was where AI helped you, this is where you did it all on your own, this is where it kind of blended together? Can you honestly say that AI was useful to you to help improve your content, to help improve your organization, whatever it was that you used AI to help you with, but it didn't create your core content? Can you look me in the eye, either figuratively or in reality, and say, yeah, that's how I did it? And ultimately, did you learn something? Did you learn something valuable from the process? If you use AI 100%, you didn't learn anything, and you're not going to learn anything that way. That's not helpful. But using AI as a tool, applying critical thinking skills and AI together, keeping in mind this 70-30 principle, AI can be a powerful learning tool that can assist you, and you can walk away from the process saying, yeah, I learned some really good stuff there that I'm going to take with me. Those are the things I want you to ask yourself as you begin to start working on this assignment, and then as you complete it. Can you go through and say yes to all those questions?